Hi there, and welcome to Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. Really appreciate you being with me. Ben Robinson, creative director for Master Replicas, is joining us for this episode. My relationship with Master Replicas as a customer goes back nearly 20 years, and the same guys at the top. So I know this company. I know their quality, and as Stargate fans, we've had middling quality in terms of merchandise. We've had low quality merchandise, and we've had top notch. And I think Master Replicas first started off with the watch, if I'm not entirely mistaken, the Stargate watch for the 10th anniversary. But we are speaking with them today to talk about their spaceship and Stargate collection. Master Replicas has been putting out a number of pieces, from Death Gliders to F-302s to all kinds of products, and they have a really special piece now that is available for pre-order. Will be shipping fairly soon here in the future. We're going to talk about all of it: their design process, the challenges of transforming a larger scale object into something smaller, picking paint schemes, because lighting is all different throughout, different episodes. We're going to have a lot of those conversations and get under the hood of these props and see maybe what's in store for a few pieces for fans in the future. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Ben Robinson, creative director of Master Replicas. Ben, I am thrilled to have you. I have many questions for you about this operation, and thanks so much for being here on Dial the Gate. I really appreciate having you.
It's a pleasure. I only hope I can answer your questions.
Oh, absolutely. I know you can. The one thing that I've never been really sure on. So the Master Replicas brand. So I have owned this for over probably 20 years now, and several lightsabers like it. Is this the same company, or did you purchase I know you guys, this team did not create this, but is it the same company?
It's the same.
Or is it just the same
my
name?
boss,
You
my
purchased the name.
boss, my boss was the boss of those people too. So if you want to put it that way.
See.
So he was, Master Replicas was his company way back when. It was part of a bigger group that got into some financial difficulties. He came out of that still owning the Master Replicas brand.
So it's his brand. Okay.
It's his brand. And when Eaglemoss collapsed, my God, everybody collapses. This is it's the history of Western civilization. When Eaglemoss collapsed, and then they found me and took on the stuff and wanted to revive what Eaglemoss had been doing. And he owned the Master Replicas brand. I always wanted to bring it back, and it seemed like the right place to start.
Well, that's really assures me, because Master Replica, I mean, you go to Disneyland and you see the lightsabers there. They're toys. This is a replica. Master Replicas, I have always associated that name with top tier quality, and that assures me a little bit, knowing that the same through line is threaded through all of this material that you guys have created off and on for decades. So I am thrilled to hear that. Are you a Stargate fan?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I'm obviously my absolute expertise is Star Trek.
Okay.
I'm in the kind of very small number of people who know as much as I do about Star Trek, or know as many people. Stargate, I'm a bit more of a normal fan.
So you're an extreme Star Trek fan?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Who was the captain of the Enterprise C?
Rachel Garrett.
That's right. You want to throw one at me?
All right. Who was the captain of the Enterprise B?
John Harriman.
Yes, correct. Only acting captain hasn't left Space Dock.
That's exactly right. On Tuesday. No, I'm kidding. Oh, that's great. I want to talk about how you guys decided to do Stargate and what the process has been like with this particular license, with working with MGM, and what the fan response has been like. Can you tell me?
The fan response has been great. It's been very, very satisfying. And and gratifying, satisfying and gratifying. MGM are very nice to work with. They're absolutely fine. I guess the a sort of bigger part of it behind the scenes is quite often what we do is above and beyond what the studio expects. So the models that we've made so far are actually based on the original CG assets which Mark Savala sourced for us,
Oh, Mark
I
Savella sourced them for you. Okay.
yeah, so he actually gave them to us, so they're direct from the vendors. Um, and it was Joe Malozzi who introduced me to Mark, and so on and so on. So it's been a pleasure.
So these models, you're pulling these from CG source files that were used in the show. Someone has not doctored them. These are originals.
Pretty much. I mean, there's the big Stargate, the big Ra's pyramid from the movie, that we had to recreate based on study of the prop because obviously it wasn't CG when it was originally made. But yeah, when it comes to the SG-1 Atlantis and Universe assets, those all came to us from Mark. So Mark got the vendor to send them direct to us, and we go through a process of converting them into a format that can be used by the factory to make the tooling. So there's a little bit of work is done to them, but they are fundamentally the models that were used to make them in the show.
Which is your favorite that you've released so far?
Well, you know what? It's a funny thing. It's always the last thing that you did.
I can
So
understand that.
I mean the Rise Pyramid is extraordinary. I mean, I think it's only up on pre-order at the moment, and but I want to make it clear to people just how big it is. I mean, this thing it's big. I mean, it's it's square because well, it's pyramid obviously, but
It's
basically
pyramidal in shape.
yes, it's a pyramidal shaped pyramid. Otherwise, but it's a really big piece. I mean, and you look at it and you go, "Wow, that's quite something." But it's also, about the size of an IKEA shelf, which I always think is important to people. That if you can put it on I figure most people have IKEA shelving, and that if you have something that will sit on an IKEA shelf, then you're much more likely to be able to accommodate it in your home.
I think that that's a great standard. You shouldn't expect the typical client to have to go out and buy furniture to suit your piece, unless you're getting one
I'm
of those QMX or whatever they are, the Starship replicas that are like 3 feet long that you only seem to see at Comic Con, but never actually anyone owning except for one or two. But yeah, it's they're very displayable in size. Is that what you look for in terms of the benchmark of, okay, what size are we going to pick for something?
Yes, it's exactly that. It's what size will allow you to show something in plenty of detail so that you can get a really nice sense of it as an object. But also what size is practical for people to display. So that's one of the reasons we don't do things in scale with one another. So we make them the same size rather than the same scale. Because obviously, if we did the pyramid in scale with the Death Glider, uh, it would be well, either the Death Glider would be very small, or the pyramid would be very, very big.
Right.
So obviously they're not exactly the same size, but although the Hatak, the SG-1 version, is the same size. So you want people to be able to display these things. You want them to be able to put them around their desk. I mean, God, you should see the stuff that's on my desk at the moment. It's a complete mess. Um, but yeah, that's the idea, is that they make nice display pieces that people can put around their computer or put on the shelf.
Absolutely. I love your vertical book stacking, by the way. The Ghostbusters will be proud. Um,
I have so many books I have to find, but stacked in every possible way.
the where do you fall in terms of miniaturizing and losing definition of things? Because that's
Um,
going to happen.
yes, I mean you open these models and they say that the factory companies you say this model is 3 miles long. What do we? I mean you need to be able to retain a, a worthwhile level of detail. So I mean one of the things that really it frustrates me about other people's models. I think all too often in the past, things have been made by people who are maybe very good at making models, but aren't familiar with the shows.
Right.
Don't have the kind of emotional attachment to the things that you or I would have.
Yep.
So when you look at something, you want it to kind of feel absolutely right. You want it to be. So I spend a lot of time on color, for example.
Oh.
The colors of the renders or the colors of the 3D model that you get are not exactly the same all the time. So if you are flying in the atmosphere of a sandy planet, you will look a different color than if you're flying in space or if you've got the reflection of the sun. Or frankly, visual effects artists will make something a little brighter or a little darker depending on the needs of the shot. So,
Lighting is everything that we are seeing, and we don't even realize it.
absolutely, everything is about lighting. So, I'm very careful that although we get these reference shots, I then do literally pour over all the episodes trying to get all the shots to make sure that it's like, okay, actually, it's it's 17 different shades of grey across these 4 episodes. But when I'm creating something, I want it to have the right, to feel like it does in the show, to have that sort of sense of authenticity. Um, and that's a judgment thing as much as it's not a definitive thing because light changes all the time. Or you do very subtle things like you can paint you're making a model that's maybe 8 inches 9 inches long, but it's something that in the world of the show is through 400 meters long. And what happens is that the shadows that are cast by something of that huge size are not cast by something of that small size.
Right.
So, but you can do these things where you can paint a very subtly darker shade of the same color that implies the shadow and implies a degree of depth that isn't actually there. So there are a lot of tricks you learn over the years of doing these things to try and make things feel satisfying.
Uh, I know for a fact that there is one object in particular that is so translucent that it basically had 4 or 5 different paint layers to it. And I imagine that you were absolutely pulling your hair out trying to get it exactly right. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I'm not. The most extreme example that I've ever come across is the original paint scheme of the Enterprise in Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Okay.
which has a pearlescent paint finish with 36 different shades of
That
paint.
well, wow. Man, I'm glad to know that though. That's fascinating. I'm actually referring to the Stargate models. The
Yeah,
puddle
no, I don't know
jumper.
which one. I have to. The puddle jumper.
The
Yeah,
puddle
well, the
jumper.
puddle
The
jumper does
green
change.
is like there's green, there's brown, there's a little bit of gray, and it's 4 or 5 different layers. And it's just like what's the term for it? Stippled on or whatever?
Stippled. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean, that's the other thing that happens is that you have layers of wash and wear and sort of there are different techniques you can use. I mean, so that's a really good example. So the puddle jumper. On the puddle jumper, okay, you have an additional level of complexity on the puddle jumper in that you have a full-size prop and you have a CG asset. And if you watch the show carefully, they're clearly not the same.
That's correct.
Um,
And the jumper design evolves from season 1 to season 5.
Even though they're the same. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So yeah, on the jumper, there's a big thing about, obviously it has those indented areas where, there was a lot of experimentation and back and forth to try and make sure that the level of shadow, or is it actually darker in the grooves, it came out with feeling satisfying. And then the other thing, of course, with the puddle jumper is you've got the CG asset and it's got the engine pods or engine weapon pods are open. And you're like, oh, what do you see from the outside of the puddle jumper when the pod is open? And so you're literally going through every single episode trying to find, like, okay, where do you ever actually see between the pod and the interior?
Not
And
really.
also, you don't, but you
Yeah.
literally went through every episode trying to
Right?
check
Just to make
that
sure.
you don't see this because somebody will pop up and say, season 3, episode 6, you could see this and you've got it wrong. So,
Actually, excuse me.
Yeah, but that look, I mean, I'm enough of a fan as well to know that's how people look at things, and that's right. That's what they should be doing.
That's right.
But then you also get into, I mean, it's unfortunately the sample that's on my desk is, oh, actually, no, it's not. It is, well, it's slightly broken. The weapons pod's loose on this one. So then you look at it, and then you start sort of thinking, well, actually, how does the engine pod, if it's retracted, how does it go into the interior? And then you're looking at the episodes and sort of going, where's the engine pod?
Where is it going?
Wide is this? Because you can see how wide the cabin is.
Yeah.
And yet the rear section seems to be wider than it should be if the pods are in. I mean, you end up worrying about a lot of things.
They're doing sleight of hand.
Yes, of course they are. I mean, and actually they did a pretty good job. The set and the thing does match up, and they clearly did think about it. But you do, if you're doing the job properly, you do sit there and think, hang on a minute, how does this work? Where does this go? How would this fold up? Where does it retract to?
Let's talk about recreating the Stargates. I'd like to start with the SG-1 Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
I have SG-1 in Atlantis. I have them downstairs. Well done, sir. Very well done. How do you start that process? I'm assuming you didn't have one of the CG assets.
I did for Atlantis.
For Atlantis, okay.
But it turned out to be wrong. Believe it or not. But not for SG-1. So one of the guy who does most of the modeling for me. So even though we get the files in from the vendors, we still need to do a bit of work converting them. We need to export them in a particular kind of CAD file, an STL format that the factories can work with. So they go to, in this particular case, a modeler called Ed Giddings, who is a big Stargate fan. And he had actually already created the SG-1 gate for the DVD packaging, I believe. So Ed, in that particular case, I mean, he really knows his Stargate in some depth and detail. Ed had already got a Stargate model. You then go through the whole thing of like, the glyphs and the correct positioning of the glyphs, and where are they all in the correct sequence? Is it even consistent? Can you find the reference in the episodes to check that the glyphs are the same and stay in the same sequence?
You want to make sure.
And there was some reference, I think MGM supplied us with some reference, which was an official reference, which Ed was like, I don't think this is right. And we did a lot of back and forth on that.
It's funny, I could have supplied you with those because I sold the original SGC Stargate, and it was 9 different sections of rainbow shaped cutouts of the glyphs. They all broke down into their sections. I could have gotten you that.
Well, this is one of the things as you learn, you get to know people as you work on this thing.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of it. Is finding out what's where and who knows.
That's right. Who knows what?
Because there was a thing, we did a variant. So when we did the variants of the Daedalus, the issue of the numbering on the pods, on the engine, the engine pods came up. And in fact, of course, what happened is that most of the time they actually used the same asset. They didn't necessarily go in and change the details.
Yeah.
So you can actually see that it says O2 on, whether it's the Hammond or but anyway.
Yeah,
and I remember
so 01 would have been Daedalus, 02 would have been Odyssey.
Well, in theory, that's how it should be. But in fact, in reality, in the show, you can find references that are contradictory.
Wow. Okay. Hammond says 02.
Because they actually said 02 because it's the same. The reality is it's the same model on this. But I actually asked Brad Wright about this, and Brad's like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, to go into the weeds for a second there, they had the same issue on Battlestar Galactica with the Viper models. The tail numbers were all Kara's tail number in the broadcast episodes, and then for the DVDs, they went and fixed them. So they re-rendered the shots and made them correct for the rest of time. So it's just how it goes, man. So the Stargate, the SG-1, adapting the SG-1 prop.
Yes, so in that case, so Ed in the SG1, the gate itself, Ed had his own model of it.
Okay.
You go through and study it. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's a bit thin." I think if it's early on. It's certainly the original prop is quite thin, in comparison to the Atlantis version. And then you get big philosophical questions. So, is the Earth Stargate exactly the same as the gates on the other planet? Or is it, or can you take a contradiction between PX whatever and
Right. There may have
the
been
Earth Gate,
minute
and can you
updates.
say, well, actually it's the same because of this? Can I use that as reference for this or not? You actually, there's one episode I think where you see the back of the Earth Gate. Um,
There's a couple of them, yeah,
but
but they're
it's
they're
not got
rare.
a good, clear reference, So it's that kind of thing. It's insane the amount of time you spend looking for these things. And as I say, there's always going to be someone who will say, "I think you got this a little bit wrong." You know.
So the Atlantis Gate is a straight up digital copy.
Well, this was another one with the glyphs again. It was like I don't. These glyphs are. It was the digital asset. We had a digital asset that came from Mark. Um, but obviously the digital asset was used. I think that is another instance where I think they basically used the digital asset 90% of the time. It was used for matting into other planets rather than into the Atlantis one, because obviously they had the big
They
physical
had it there.
permanent set piece in the Atlantis set. So yes, it was a digital asset, but wasn't exactly like the big practical set piece that was in the Atlantis control room. So it was very minor differences. And again, I think it was the positioning of the glyphs that was the issue, that the sequencing on the glyphs wasn't quite correct. And that was something I think where we did, I'm trying to remember how it worked out. Again, we had some MGM reference that was contradictory. And then, there's some early publicity shots, which are very
Right.
clear for it. But then you're going through and you're like, also, but then you get into like, well, the glyphs are digital. Are they always there? Or are they, what's happening? Are the glyphs moving, or is there actually, or all there these dots and everything like that? So,
I always wondered on set. I was there on set to see the digital glyphs go,
mm,
but I was trying to remember, like, did were they like CG'd
did it
on?
move, or did they just, yeah, or
Yeah.
did they
So
light up?
was it a trick? So yeah, I
Yeah.
can't specifically remember, but no, it was the Atlantis Gate is just a stunning prop in and of itself. And I mean, again, it's going back to for the SG1 Gate as well, going back to the color and making sure that the lighting, that the paints that you pick are going to be as true to the look of the thing in a typical fan's room. Because a lot of the
Yes.
promotional material for Atlantis, I hate this to this day, the gate's brown.
Yeah.
And on like half of the promotional material, and it's just incorrect lighting. And the layman is not going to know any better when they're pulling this content from MGM to do to create new product. So it's really up to you guys to make sure that you get it right.
Yeah, and it is subjective. I think, color is one of those things where I suspect no two people see color exactly the same way. And it's very difficult to know that what you're seeing is the same as what somebody else is seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I know I think I perceive tone. So I'm very keenly aware of tone on color. Whereas other people are more aware of reds and blues, or those kind of things. But yeah, it's tricky, and as I say, you will always do it in a way that is not quite what somebody else thinks is right. There's always that, and then you have photography as well. So you have
Yeah.
your own lighting in the photography. Someone else has lighting in their photography, and I will tell the sad truth about things of this size. People will take something that is a half an inch wide and blow it up so it's 6 inches wide, and then they'll say it's not very accurately painted. And you're like, that's a brush stroke. That is like a 16th of an inch or a 32nd of an inch,
It's
and
not it's not meant to
you're
be
looking at it.
examined at that resolution.
Well, and nobody nobody holding it in their hand would be able to see what you're showing me.
Jeez, absolutely. The Daedalus, the BC304, is it your intention to is that going to be your offering for the Hammond, for the Odyssey, for the Apollo, for the Korolev, for the Daedalus, or do you intend to release separate ones?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's an interesting question. One of the things we don't really know, you just have to guess, is what kind of appetite people have for things.
Right.
So obviously, the idea is that the Daedalus is always available, and that people could always buy that. And I'm trying to remember which way around we did the Odyssey and the Hammond, and one of them was harder to get than the other. One of them was like we have a club membership thing where
collect them all.
yeah,
Buy now.
Yeah, I mean, does everybody want? I mean, does everybody want 6 versions of the same ship with slightly different names written on the side? Yeah,
that's it.
There are people who do, and I think it's important that you find a way of doing something that gives people the opportunity to get something special, and to get something that is rare and unique. Well, not quite unique, but unusual. But at the same time, you don't want to do something that annoys other people because they couldn't get it. So all that tradition of doing the retailer exclusives. If you do too many retailer exclusives, or you make it so that people can't have what I would consider to be a decent collection, if you'd said, oh well, the Death Glider is only available from Walmart or wherever,
a specific region, a specific country, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
This is a global
that to
franchise.
me is unfair. That to me is unfair. Yes, because as an English person, I'll tell you, it's like, oh, it's a Walmart exclusive. Well, there are no Walmarts in England. You can't, or I presume in Canada for that matter. It's hard enough for people to get things in Canada. So you want to find a nice balance where you're able to say, look, you can have a collection that feels complete, but there are also some kind of slightly more esoteric things, whether it's the Korolev, which we haven't done yet, but perhaps we will, or whatever, that are only available with a little, if they're rare, they take a bit of extra effort. You will be able to get them if you try really hard, it's an interesting balance, but I think it's important that people could still get everything they want, everything at a basic level.
I to be perfectly honest, I've been surprised at the pricing. These are more than reasonable, in my opinion, considering the cost of manufacturing and everything else today, shipping, from overseas, what with the waves and all, it takes a while. The question that I have for you is twofold. First of all, how has the response been? Please be honest, to the Stargate line compared to some of the other properties, and what is some of the product that you would like to create, given the momentum of the brand on Master Replicas?
So, I mean, it has been great. It's been really, as I say, it's been really gratifying to see how people have embraced the Stargate line. You see some interesting things. I mean, obviously, Master Replicas. So I used to run the same kind of thing at Eaglemoss, and then Master Replicas picked up and carried on the torch after Eaglemoss fell apart. So we're only just getting stuff out now. We've had stuff that's been on pre-order, and the pre-orders have been very gratifying. So it's only just now that the Puddle Jumper and the Bill Skinner and the Pyramid are only just coming out now. So what you never know is how the pre-orders will translate into the actual sale, but the pre-orders have been very healthy. So you don't know whether that's everybody is going to buy it or 10% of the people are going to buy it or whatever. But the response has been great, to the point when you're looking through and saying, okay, what's the logical extension? What's the extent of this collection? If we did every ship, what would that mean? And I tell you from Battlestar Galactica, there is a line at which people are like, okay, there are some people that would love this, third ship from the back in the ragtag fleet. But for most people, the line is somewhere a little bit more mainstream than that.
It's not worth the R&D.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
lots of people, there are people who just want to have everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are also people who, really want the hero ships and the things that everybody remembers. Um, and then particularly with any franchise like Stargate, you're kind of like, well, I wonder where the popularity lies because there aren't so many ships. I mean, with Star Trek, we did 400 models.
Yeah, that Eagle Moss did. He
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
did them. This was
Mm,
from episode 200. It's like, wow, this
absolutely.
some of the oddest selections. I'm like, yeah, that was a ship. That's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Man, it's just absolutely
absolutely.
wild.
Whereas with Stargate, it's not quite like that. There aren't that many ships in it. I mean,
Yeah, it's not mainly a
Stargate
ship
is
show. That's
it's
right.
mainly a show you go through Stargates.
That's right.
So it's interesting seeing that so far, um, the Asgard ship slightly outselling the Puddle Jumper,
Interesting.
and
Wow.
that's not necessarily what I would have expected.
I
Um,
agree. Sounds like an O'Neill
I
class, maybe up maybe along the way.
I may indeed. But that's the kind of thing that you have to do more in order to learn. I mean, it's no surprise. It's no surprise that the Daedalus sells really well, or that the Death Glider or the F402. Those things are what you'd expect. Um, but then learning that maybe anything from SG1 is a little more popular than anything from Atlantis. Maybe not. Who knows? I mean, maybe just more people know about us, and
That's
and
true. They each have
and
their own silos of fans. A lot of the fans crisscross over, but some of them just stay inside that. What about Destiny?
it's, I'm working on it right now. Actually, I was looking at it just yesterday.
Really? So this is more than just a pipe dream.
It is definitely more than a pipe dream. It'll be out this year.
That's wonderful. Absolutely. So you guys secured the franchise license, not series by series.
Oh yes, no, absolutely, yes, we
Okay.
have, and and the great thing and the movie, obviously.
Yep.
So yeah, we'd be. I mean, I'm very keen to hear feedback from people. I think we need to get reviews turned on the site. I'd really love to see people leave their reviews of the ships. I think that's a functionality. We just relaunched the website, so there's a
Okay.
bunch of stuff that you can do now that couldn't do before. But I think, yeah, we'd spread the word. I mean, everything depends on the strategy. Is these things are obviously made for the true fan.
For sure.
This is not a kind of little Tommy picked it up in Target, um, because he quite likes Stargate. I mean, it's because it looked cool.
These are
These are
works of
things.
art.
Well, I hope so. I mean, these are made for people who are passionate and who know what they are, and really, wish they could put a bit more Stargate in their life.
Mhm.
That there isn't any new Stargate on TV at the moment, um, and they want, and it's still a great show, and they want to have some of it on their desk.
Mhm.
Um, so we need the feedback. We need people to tell other people, because obviously you guys are, lots of hardcore guys are still coming to talking to you and stuff like that, but there's still a lot of people out there who love Stargate who maybe don't even know that there are models.
It's in their rearview mirror. They haven't seen it on television for years. If MGM would figure out what it wants to do with the new product,
Yeah.
all of a sudden Google searches for Stargate, besides the one that the U.S. government has suddenly just skewed all of our search results for some strange reason. They decided to do that. Thanks, guys. But yeah, the searches for Stargate, for actual Stargate, will start being popular again. It's just we're all just waiting. But I do have a question about the design choice for the
Mm.
bases underneath the Stargates. Surprised me a little bit how hefty and large they are. Can you tell me about the thought behind that? Was it to kind of give a counterbalance to the shape on top, make it a more pleasing display piece? And has there been any consideration to sell separate dioramas that you can stick it into?
So yeah, so the problem with the Stargate is always, um, when you see them, they're very rare. You don't just see a Stargate unless it's floating in space. You
Right.
don't just get a Stargate. Particularly the SG-1 gate. It's built into this quite sort of involved diorama. It's got all those kind of metal plates and the ramp, and the concrete walls around it with a very specific shape and all of that. So when you come to doing it, like in everybody's mind, it probably does have a ramp and maybe it has a DHD and it has all those things. And once you start doing that, you're suddenly talking about a $200 model or whatever instead of I can't remember what we did, like a $50-$60
Yeah.
model. So you have to have some kind of display base that is affordable.
Okay.
And kind of pleasing. I was determined that the gates themselves, you would have the whole gate. So if you wanted to display it in a different way, you could.
Okay.
And there was a practical consideration about how much of the gate needed to sit inside some kind of base in order to support it so that it didn't just fall over.
That's right.
So you need a certain amount of depth. You need to cover up a certain amount of the gate, particularly if it's just going to be supported by its own weight. So those were kind of the starting considerations. And it also had to have a certain width because of that. It had to sort of contain a certain percentage of the gate. You didn't want to get trapped into like building a specific location. I mean, like Atlantis, what you have to build a bit of marble flooring for it. I mean,
right. Yeah.
So the idea was to do something that looked a bit. I'd just been on a holiday in Egypt, believe it or not, at the time. And there are those very distinctive kind of temple shapes with the kind of slight flare at the top and the angle. So that was the inspiration for it.
That's
And that's
cool.
kind of why it's the way it is. It could probably be a bit slimmer front to back. There are still, it's not gone from my mind completely to do something with more of a kind of a diorama type setting.
Okay.
The irony, of course, is that the DHDs are not in the principal locations, if you think about it. So, in SG-1, that you've got the control room rather than them using a DHD. In
Same with
Atlantis,
Atlantis.
it's the same,
Yeah.
but they're punching it up on the, in the big control room.
Yeah.
Destiny, it doesn't really look like a DHD. I guess, it's like a console.
They've got devices, yeah, that do
Yeah,
it.
or
It's all
like a remote control.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do the DHD, suddenly you're not doing the main gate anymore. You're doing a gate on PX whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So but that doesn't mean we won't do a DHD. I mean, as a good example, I think it's a kind of an obvious thing to do. But then again, do people want to buy DHD without a gate?
But if you're gonna get one, you don't want to get a big DHD that's you can actually see and sit it next to a Stargate. The one of these. It's gonna look out of place, and then if you create one that's that size, it's gonna be too small.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, these are all the questions. These are the things that you kind of run through, and there are no completely satisfying answers. I mean, maybe we do a DHD that is 3 times the size that it should be to go with the gate.
Okay.
But then people will complain about that. I mean,
you gotta.
It's not in scale with the gate.
Somewhere.
Why can't you do it in scale with the gate? But as you say, well, because it would only be, 3 inches tall.
That's it. I would imagine the 3D printing market would scare the hell out of you guys. But I've been delighted to see, like, some of my friends have posted their own custom 3D printed dioramas that fit these Stargates, and you guys have liked them on social media.
Absolutely.
It's spreading the word of this.
No, I mean 3D printing. I mean, the first thing to say is 3D printing is not as easy as anyone thinks.
Right.
It's getting more and more sophisticated all the time, and I'm just beginning to hear that it may become practical for mass production. But the reality of 3D printing is that it is a kind of a model maker skill kind of level activity. I mean, there are people who are doing beautiful work that's 3D printed, but it's beyond me. I couldn't do it. Even if I've got the right file, once most output from most 3D printers still needs to be sanded, and that's not as easy as you might think.
Yeah, it's not just plug and play.
No, and it has like little bits of banding in and stuff like that. And then you've got to paint it. And one of the reasons these things are the way they are, because of my complete incompetence in that area, that I would always want something that was painted, as high a standard as it reasonably could be, rather than me trying to do it. So I know 3D printing is, not at all scared, because I think it's actually much harder than people realize. And also much more expensive than people realize. I mean, a 3D print, you see people saying, "Oh, I could 3D print it for a fraction of the cost."
Yeah, but are you going to spend the time on it?
You really,
time is
really
cost
couldn't.
too.
You really couldn't. Well, no, I mean, even just the cost, you really couldn't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I think, I mean, people are always trying. Oh, I could 3D print this or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, then you should.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Post it. I want to see it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And there are people who do beautiful 3D printed work, as they say.
Scale replicas, we've got it covered. Any thoughts on prop replicas? Any thoughts on creating like the DHD remote from Universe, or your own version of the Eye of Ra necklace, or what's the thought process there, and what is being considered?
Well, all of these things are within our granted rights. I kind of think a Jafar helmet is the obvious place to go.
Like the serpent helmets?
Like the serpent helmet, yeah, I guess. Or you could have the horse head ones as well. But I assume people would want the serpent helmet.
Well, Anubis and Horus have been released. I don't think a serpent guard helmet has been released from a licensed distributor. And would this be scale, or would this be full size?
Well, again, what do people want?
Yeah.
We could do either. I mean, I think full size is a bit of it's certainly not something you can fit on an IKEA shelf.
No, I've got one in my hallway, and my dad wants to punch it every time he comes out of his room when they visit. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of figure like a kind of half size or quarter size replica is probably the kind of sweet spot for something like that.
Glowing eyes?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, one of the things we still talk about is, could we make a Stargate that spun?
Yeah. Some people are doing it through 3D printing, but it is a bear. It's very meticulous. It's not easy to do. And how many revolutions do you get before it breaks?
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. And how fast does it spin? And how do you control where it spins? And then, it's spinning, but now I want the chevrons to lock.
Oh, God. Yeah, that's right. That's right. How much detail are you going to go? It's not done until you get a puddle to come out of it. I'm sorry. Well,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's
exactly.
funny. That's funny.
So I think, I mean, certainly the serpent guard helmet is in some form is on the list. A Zachna.
Zach Nicotel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As also a possibility. I mean, we can do kind of anything. We just need, it's about what people want. We're very open to being lobbied. That's what we have.
Can you hold on for 10 seconds?
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Legends Memorabilia put this out years ago.
Yes.
And it's great because it's in the closed position, so you can carry it, for cosplay. But I would love one that's on a stand that is in the open position.
Yes, that's how I would imagine doing it.
So that people would have the option of either finding these on the secondary market or getting one that you can pose that looks like, it's ready to strike. As phallic as they are, they're SG1. They represent that series, so that would be really cool.
Yeah. Yes, I mean these are all, as I say, these are all on a list. So I'm keen to look at them, but we haven't done anything yet. So people should feel free to lobby it.
Absolutely. And so they can just go to masterreplicas.com and contact you?
Yeah, probably the Facebook page is probably the thing
Facebook.
for Master Replicas on Facebook. That's a good place to go and put like, oh, I would really love to see this, or I would love to see that. You know, if people really want to replicate a model, I'm looking on the shelves behind you. You know, that's
Naquita reactor, anyone?
yeah, well, exactly. If that's what people want, then they need to tell us.
ZPM, I think, would probably be the big one.
Well, yes.
And that's really tricky. Like, if you're going to do a genuine full scale prop replica, I would do the ZPM. Blue Bricks did one, I think it was, and it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. But the real ones, oh man, I've held them and they're tricky to create.
Yeah, and I think you want it to light up as well, don't you?
That's exactly right. And just slightly oscillate. That's it. Ben, I'd love to end where we began with the pyramid. This is a beautiful model. I know that MGM has it in their archive. Did you guys go and get physical scans of it, or did you use a great deal?
Photography.
You did?
Yeah, photography. So Ed was literally poring over every hieroglyph on it.
Wow. I need to talk to this Ed.
It took a while. It took him a while. And I have to admit, I took some of them on trust.
Yeah, he's an artist.
But he cares. I mean, but yeah, so it is. I mean, and I think one of the things that is always a challenge for anything you sell online is just communicating just how big this thing is and how
it's a huge prop.
It is really big. It's not. I mean, it's ours is, as I say, it's about a foot across.
Wow.
And it's really difficult to communicate that online. So like people are looking and going, "Oh, it's twice the cost of this." It's like, yeah, but it's 4 times the size. You know,
yeah, you need to scale it with like like a physical piece of money or something. You know,
it's
so hard to do
always
that.
difficult to know what to use to show scale. It's it always looks like there's like a giant tennis ball rolling around in the desert.
That's right. Well, I would love to have one for this set. Is there any way I could do an unboxing for Dial the Gate? Could you guys get me one?
Absolutely, yes, we will be able to.
I appreciate it. By the time this goes out, I will have unboxed the SG1 and Atlantis gates on screen, so they will have already seen that just before this interview airs. I am thrilled that you guys have this property because the pedigree of the Master Replicas brand is built into the quality of every single piece, and you're creating wonderful products for the Stargate community, a community that has been beaten left and right quite a bit with some mediocre stuff. So it's really important to me to have a conversation with you guys and to see your genuine commitment to this franchise.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's exactly what we hope for. That's that's what we aspire to, is to make stuff that people kind of this is someone that gets it. That's the goal.
That was Ben Robinson, creative director for Master Replicas. Really appreciate him coming on to share the details of so many beautiful pieces that are now available for our IKEA shelves. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, please click the like button. It does make a difference with the show and will help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. If you plan to watch live, I recommend giving the bell icon a click so you'll be the first to know if any schedule changes, which happen here and there. And bear in mind, clips from this episode will be released over the course of the next few weeks and months on the Dial the Gate YouTube channel. That's mainly what I have for you here, as this is a recorded episode, but my moderating team, thanks to you guys for making my front end work here possible. Anthony, Jeremy, Marsha, Summer, Tracy, Raj, Lockwatcher, you guys are great. My producers, Anthony and Linda, and big thanks to Frederick Marcoux over at Concepts Web. He's our web developer for dialthegate.com, keeps everything rolling here. We've got a number of live shows and pre-recorded shows coming at you, and we're just going to keep on working it. I'm David Reed for the Dial the Gate, and I'll see you on the other side.